Okay, so let's take a look at the first assignment. So the first assignment focuses on the user interface design. Right? So this might be the beginning of a project, and you've participated in many in many requirements gathering meetings, and all the stakeholders have been talking. Folks have been drawing things on the board with a sample what the different pages might look like, and have been drawing arrows everywhere on what the navigation might be. And you, as a front end developer or full stack developer, you're typically participating in these meetings, and you're creating prototypes of what everybody's saying, right? And you're dragging widgets around and copying widgets from Bootstrap or from material design, or you're copying all these snippets of HTML, and you're building something that might look like what they're describing, right? What they're drawing on the board, something that looks like it works, but it isn't, right? It's all hard coded, and at the end of the week, you show this prototype to the stakeholders. Hey, how about this, right? And the stakeholders can then actually click and navigate and say, "Oh, this looks good," or give you some feedback. Say, "What if we change the layout this other way in the navigation?" Then you go back and reshuffle some of this prototype and get some other feedback from the user. So this first assignment is that prototyping. Okay, we're going to prototype what the faculty would see. What we'll focus on the second half of today's lecture. We're going to get started with creating that prototype. And we'll get started. I will probably not finish with the prototype. I'll be hanging a little bit today. But throughout the week, maybe tomorrow or Thursday, I'll keep adding to this prototype, right, and sharing it on GitHub for you, right, so that you can take this as a starting point for completing your assignment. All right, you'll have enough headache just trying to be deployed on Heroku, right? Of just getting all the environment variables all set up and having the right version of Java and the right version of this command line interface and Spring Boot. So you'll have your hands plenty full. You're just getting the system up and running. So I'll give you a lot of the source code to deploy on Heroku to get you going. All right. And so this user interface is going to look as follows. So these are the features that we're going to be focusing on implementing this week. We'll implement the beginnings of what a homepage might look like. Typically a faculty, they log in, and the first thing they see is all the list of courses that they've authored, right? Maybe just like you're in Google Docs, you see all the documents that you've authored, right? So this would be, well, I actually took a snapshot of Google Docs, and so that will be an example of what it might look like, right? All these frameworks, all these wireframes and pictures that I'm going to show you today, those are just ideas of what it might look like. You're free to make it look any way you want, right? As long as the functionality is there, you're free to choose your own themes, your own fonts, your own icons, lay it out, somewhat different, right? But the functionality should be the same. So these wireframes are just suggestions of what these might look like, but you're free to theme it in different ways. So we'll start with a homepage as a list of courses, and that'll be worth 20 points. Then the registration and login, that'll be worth 10 points. So it'll be two forms, almost identical to each other. We'll probably be done with those today in class, so that's why they're only worth 10 points. I'm going to give you most of the source code. Then the profile will be just a slightly more complex than the login and registration, where you can edit your first name, last name, email, and some personal information. And then the bulk of this will be the course editor. Being able to edit a course, right? Where you might have a list of modules the course is made up of, right? And each module, you can click on a module and have multiple tabs, multiple pills, multiple widgets that display the content of the course. And so that would be the bulk of the application. So again, we'll get started on all this today, and throughout the week, I'll be
I'll be providing sample code that you can use. The learning objectives is, we'll get started on HTML, on CSS, on how to lay out web pages using the Bootstrap library. We'll get going on setting up a development environment using a Java Spring Boot. We'll do some modeling, data modeling with UML. Here's a design of what we're going to be building. So there's going to be so this is a UML class diagram that captures the different objects and classes that are involved in our project. So there's students and faculty. Right? So these are the two main actors in our application. Right? And we're going to be building two applications, one geared toward the faculty and one geared toward the students. Right? The first half of the semester we're going to focus on building the application for the faculty. The second half of the semester we'll focus on building an application for the student. And it'll give us a chance to look at two different stacks. Okay? So they're both persons. And so that's going to be our first challenge a little later. How do we implement that generalization, right, of a base class and two derived classes? So we'll need to create a data model for that. Faculties have a one-to-many relationship with courses and sections. So a faculty can author many courses, and they can teach many sections. Right? It could be that I am the author of a course, but I teach some other section of some other course. Right? I don't have to be both. Right? So also a course can have many sections. One course, multiple sections, and students can enroll. There's a many-to-many relationship between the student and section. Who's done databases here? Okay, not all of you. So okay, so some of the terminology of data modeling might be new for those that haven't done databases. I always encourage folks to take databases first before taking this course. But nonetheless, we will implement this and see how this would be implemented using JPA, Java Persistence API. So we'll create a one-to-many relationship between faculty and courses and faculty and sections. Courses is made up of multiple modules. A module can have many chapters. A chapter can have many topics. A topic can have many widgets. And there are many types of widgets. So you can drag multiple widgets onto a page to build the content of a course. You can have headings, paragraphs, images, list of widgets, YouTube videos. You can have maybe a quiz you can drag on there, or a question. There's all sorts of widgets that you could drag onto a page. We'll focus on really trivial ones first. Okay, really simple ones. So that's the data model for the course for this application. And here's some of the wireframes that for the different features that we're going to be implementing. So users should be able to sign in, log in, where you have a username, a password, a sign-in button, two fields, links. Notice that the input fields have grayed out content, giving an idea of what it is that we're expecting them to type in there. Notice that everything's lined up, right? Everything's flush with one another. Notice that there's a white space in between the input fields. So these are all aspects that are very important in user interface design. They might have not been important in other courses, but here it is. Right? So you'll be graded on your ability of making user interfaces that are pleasing. They use good white spaces, right? That everything's nicely spaced out, everything's nicely lined up. Everything is well identified on what it is that I'm asking for. Okay, there's a clear action item there that you need to click on to navigate. There's lesser important links that are under there, like forgot password. Those are secondary actions that you can take up. What else? Also notice that it's mobile friendly, so it's responsive, so that the layout changes from vertical to horizontal when it doesn't have enough space to display the same content. So all content should be like that. Every piece of content that you ever implement in this class needs to be mobile friendly. Okay.
So always make sure that you're always testing whatever you build. You're always, making your windows really, really small, see what it looks like, and make sure that it's still usable. That if somebody visits your page with a phone, it's still usable. Right? So always be doing that. Certainly the TAs will be doing this. Right? We'll always going back and forth. Also make sure that it's the layout is usable at all sizes. Okay. Oftentimes, when there's transition between two particular sizes, oftentimes you'll see some content overlap other content or wrap weirdly, right? That is unintentional. That it's supposed to be all nicely spaced out, but actually, because it doesn't fit, it wraps underneath and it's not intended, and it covers other content. Right? That's not acceptable. Right? That's not That's not mobile friendly. So make sure that you're always looking for these things. Right? That if things wrap, it's because you intended it to wrap, not because it, was too big and it wrapped. Okay? So always look for these things. Right. So sign in. And if you use, material design or use Bootstrap, creating mobile-friendly applications is trivial. It's very, very easy. It's very hard to go wrong. So you'll be asked to implement these files. For instance, for the login, you'll be asked to implement login.template.client.html. Right? So that's the first example of best practice. Why are you choosing that naming convention? So typically, you'll be part of a team, right? And you'll be coming together and agreeing on some naming convention for your file system. The files you're going to be calling, right? Usually it won't be some just random and leave every developer to name your files any which way they want, right? For instance, the naming convention that we've chosen here is that the first part of that file is the feature. Right? What is it that you're building? What is the feature that this particular application page implements? The second one is the functionality, right? Where this particular feature, what is it? This file, what is it providing to the application? It's the template, so it's the contents of the main content. Whereas the second one, notice that login, same feature, login, but it's providing the style. Right? I mean, it's painting it, the theme, the colors, the layout. So two different roles. That's the role of this file in the application. The third portion is client, is where is this executed? Where does this live? Right? It's not intended to be executed on the server. It's intended to be executed on the client side. And the final is just the type, right? The formatting of this file. It's formatted in HTML or CSS or JavaScript or what is it, or CSS or whatever, CSV. So yeah, so there's structure to this, right? And again, if you're working by yourself, it doesn't matter what you call your files. Okay? But typically, you'll be working in a team, and you want to promote those best practices. Also, notice that it's under a directory called login, right? And so that's another decision. That's another best practice decision, is that we'll have a particular directory per feature. And everything that has to do with implementing that feature will live under that directory. And so for that, in that directory, the login feature might need some HTML, might need some CSS, might need some JavaScript to do some dynamic content, maybe some testing, that unit test, that JavaScript would go all under that one login directory. So again, that's another decision on, typically the team would come up with this decision on how to organize their files. And whatever the team comes up with, that's what every team member should follow, right? Since I'm the leader of this team, this is the directory structure that I'm choosing and my naming convention. If you've taken co-ops or you prefer a different naming convention, and you can convince me, certainly we can accommodate you. Right? But if you don't know, then use mine, right? And you'll be graded for following these naming conventions. These are best practices that we want you to grab as you go. Other things here. So this is the attempt. We're already giving you some content for you to start using. This assumes that you're using Bootstrap as your CSS style sheet. And so notice that you have all sorts of all these elements, HTML elements, are referring to classes
These are all classes defined by Bootstrap. Okay? And we'll see how Bootstrap works. Right? So these are invoking styles, colors, and sizes, and fonts that are being applied to these HTML elements. One best practice that is not shown here is that typically we would want these attributes in their own line, as if it were a separate in their separate line of code, so it makes it easier to read. But I won't touch it more. So that's the template for the HTML. So this gives you a start on how to implement the login. At each step, you are also asked to follow good software engineering practices. Okay? So ideally, you will do all your work in a Git repository, and as you complete a major milestone, perhaps you're done with the login page, you should commit all your work. And perhaps even create a branch where you work on the login feature. Yes, right? Create all your HTML, all your CSS, all your JavaScript. You commit 3 or 4 files. You provide a comment saying that you've done implemented the login feature, and you commit that. And now you're going to move on to the next feature. You can create the user sign up requirement, and you would create a GitHub branch called sign up. Yes, and then you would do all your work for the sign up. For the sign up, we're suggesting that you use these names for the files: register, template, client, HTML, and a CSS dedicated for that particular template. This is the look and feel of what it looks like. And notice that you have a login button that allows you to navigate to the login screen that we had earlier, right? And that one allows you to navigate here. Notice that, so these 2 files are linked together, right? These 2 pages are linked. I can go to the sign up and I can come back here. Forgot password is a link right now, but it doesn't work. It's not going to go anywhere. Again, all this is going to be static. It's not for real. Right? It's only a facade. It's a very thin veneer of what we're building, right? It's only a prototype. So the sign up looks almost the same as the sign in, right? The only difference is that you have a verified password, right? You have a desktop version and a mobile version. We give you the beginnings of what the registration page might look like. And again, remind you to commit your work. Yes? So here we're reminding you to do it. Eventually we're going to stop reminding you, and we're going to assume that you're going to keep doing it. Okay? So remember, apply good software engineering practices, create a branch, do all your work in your branch. Once you're happy with what you've done, you commit it, you test it, right? And then you merge it back into master. Right? And then you create another feature branch. You work on that feature branch, you test it, when you're done, you merge it back into master. Right? So we're reminding you, we're going to stop reminding you, but you're still going to be graded. So TAs are going to be you're going to make sure, right, that you have been following good software engineering practices, everything working in their own feature branch. The profile page looks like this. You have a username, but it's not editable. You can't see it, but it's grayed out. You can provide the phone, the email, the role, either faculty or students, dates. So this gives us a chance to play around with drop downs and date pickers. Notice that everything is responsive. It has 2 buttons to update your profile or log out. When you log out, you go back to the login page. Also notice that the date picker, when you click on the date, it pops up the default date picker that is supported by your browser. This has the benefit that if somebody visits the page using a mobile phone, it'll use the mobile phone's native date picker, which is pretty cool. Same thing with the email. The email is a type email, and that will bring up the mobile phone's email keyboard, right, or the number keyboard, or the phone keyboard.
So that's a good practice to use your strong typing on your input fields of the correct data type, so that the phones will know which keyboard to show for various input fields. Same thing with the drop down. It'll bring, for in iPhones, it'll bring the the scroller, right, where you can pick one of the options. Also, notice at the top there's a green message, right? That should show up all the time, right? Because we don't have a way to make this dynamic. So you should show that content at the top all the time, saying, profile successfully saved. Presumably, when you click on update, right, that would show up, giving you a feedback that your profile was saved, and then it would disappear after a little bit, after a couple seconds.
Okay. All right. So that's profile. All right. So the home page. So this is when you first log in. You come to a home page that might look something like this. Which is basically a snapshot of Google Docs. It's basically a tabular format of showing different courses that the faculty has authored, right? And so it has the names of the courses, who owns it. Me, I own them all. That last modified. Notice that there's a toggle here that shows that you can either display it as rows, or you can display it in a grid. Okay, so we'll build two versions of this, and this is a drop down that shows how it can be sorted. You can create new courses by typing the name, the title, and clicking on plus, and then it adds to the list. Obviously, that's not going to happen this first assignment. Right now, it's all hard coded. Right, it doesn't do anything. When you click on plus, when you add something, or when you edit, when you click on any one of these, it goes to the editor. Oh, there's also it's mobile friendly. So when you make it small, right? Notice that this has 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, but when it becomes small, it only has 2 columns. Well, actually no, just 1 column with an X. See that? So the columns disappear, as it becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. Right? And as they become bigger and bigger and bigger, a new column appears as it has more space to display. Okay. Right. So if I click on a particular course, I navigate to that course editor, so I can edit that course, and it displays as follows. This is the course editor. Looks like this. The left-hand side shows the modules that make up the course, right? A listing on the left-hand side, and later on, as we click different modules, different sections appear at the top. Build, pages, themes, store, apps, right? And as I click, so those are tabs at the tabs at the very top. Build, pages, theme, store. So if I click on those tabs, different topics appear underneath. Topic 1, topic 2, topic 3, topic 4. As I click through each one of the topics, different widgets appear underneath. My content widget appear. So it's a lots of one-to-many. Right? A course has many modules. A module has many sections. Each section has many topics. Each topic has many widgets. Right? And this allows you to navigate this tree, this content tree. Yes. Down below, in the content area, there are many widgets that are displayed. I think there's 4 widgets that we're asking you to build. The first one is the heading widget. So, like for instance, you can edit a heading, right? And there's 6 different sizes of headings. There's the text of the heading, the size of the heading, and the name of the widget, and also a preview of what it would look like. It would just H1. Okay. Also, there are buttons here that would allow you to move widgets up and down. Eventually, it would be dragged. You'd be able to grab it and drag widgets up and down using jQuery. We'll do that next week. Also, there's a drop down here heading that as you change the type of the widget, it
dynamically would display different widgets. Again, we don't know how to do that just yet. We need JavaScript for that. Right? That will have to wait in a week's time to do that. Right now, it's all static. None of this is dynamic. Everything's static. Heading widget. So what I mean is that as you click modules, nothing changes. Right? As you click on the tabs, nothing changes. Right? As you click on through the topics, nothing changes. It's always the same thing. It's static. Right? As we progress through the course, we'll make this dynamic. Okay.
All right, let's keep going. Widget. So the widget list shows different types of widgets. For instance, this is showing two widgets. It's showing a heading widget, and it's showing a list widget. The list widget allows you to create lists, like ULs or OLs, right? Where you can just put in each item in a separate row, and as you put different items, it renders them down below in a list as an unordered list. So those are two widgets. They all have a delete button, they all have a drop down, they all have an up and down. There's a save at the top and a preview and a plus. The plus would allow you to add new widgets. This is the description of each one of the elements: the position buttons, the save buttons, the preview checkbox, the widget name attributes, the widget property labels and placeholders. And these are each one of the widgets. So this is the heading widget, which has the text and the drop down on the size of the widget. You have a paragraph widget, which has a text area that creates a paragraph. There's a list widget that allows you to select, putting each item in a separate row. It generates a list like this. And an image widget that you can provide a URL for an image, and then it just renders that image. Again, all this is static. Right? None of this is dynamic. Okay. Source control, so make sure that you push this to a GitHub repository and invite the instructors and myself as collaborators. Okay, this is some references on things you might need. Okay, any questions?
We get started building this. Yes. Sorry? As long as you target the latest Chrome and Safari.